Welcome back to the study. Come on in, find a spot.
It's good to be back.
I've got the virtual fire crackling tonight. Can you hear that?
I can. It's a nice touch.
It's a bit of a mood setter, I admit, but honestly, for where we're going today, we really need the atmosphere.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we aren't just scrolling through headlines or looking at, the latest tech trends or whatever. We are going to the very bedrock of what you consider to be real.
Bedrock. Yeah. Though, honestly, bedrock might even be too solid a word for the territory we're covering today.
Fair point.
We're looking at the fluidity of existence. The stuff that happens before reality hardens into the physical world we see around us.
Right.
We're talking about the architecture of the self, the illusion of time, and the actual mechanics of consciousness.
It is heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But we're going to keep it relaxed.
Certainly.
Just imagine we're lounging here, beverages of choice in hand, just contemplating the multiverse together.
Sounds like a perfect evening.
But before we float off completely into the ether, we do have some necessary housekeeping to take care of.
Right, the disclaimers.
Exactly. First off, a mandatory disclaimer for everyone tuning in. This podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
Which is so important.
It is. We are here to learn, to share, and to expand our minds. We aren't selling a dogma here. We are exploring a document.
Precisely. And our roadmap for this particular journey is quite specific. We are conducting a deep dive into the Seth Material.
The Seth Material.
Specifically, we are looking at session 425 from the early sessions, book 9.
Book 9. I mean, we are really getting up there in the chronology now.
We really are. And for context for you listening, this session was recorded on July 31st, 1968.
A long time ago.
And the publisher we want to credit is the New Awareness Network.
Right. So what's our mission today with all this?
Well, the mission today is to unpack Seth's insights on a few really mind-bending topics.
Get me?
First, why our perception of time is basically just a security blanket for the ego.
I love that one.
Second, how our personalities are actually these massive gestalts that engage in probable actions all the time.
Oh, boy.
And finally, and this is my personal favorite, why being completely idle on vacation might actually be the most productive work you ever do.
Yes. I am absolutely using that as an excuse for my next 3-day weekend.
You should.
I'll just tell people, sorry, I'm not lazy. I'm engaging in high-level spiritual work right now.
It's technically true based on the material.
Exactly. But seriously, if you want to follow along with us or dig deeper, and you really should, you can find these books and just a massive treasure trove of information at the New Awareness Network website and bookstore.
Yes, highly recommended.
You can find that at sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions.
It's an incredible resource. But for now, let's just settle in.
Okay, let's jump right in. Segment 1. We're calling this the ego's security blanket versus the spacious present.
That's a great type.
So Seth starts off by throwing a bit of shade. I mean, loving shade, but shade nonetheless, at how humans perceive time. He basically says we are utterly obsessed with the past. Why is that?
He does say that, and he explains exactly why. It's not just some bad habit we picked up. It's actually a structural necessity for the ego as we currently understand it.
A structural necessity.
Yeah. Seth makes the point that the human ego gains its assurance from the memory of the immediate past.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, think about how you define yourself right now. If I ask you, who are you? You're going to tell me a story.
Right.
You'll say, I was born here, I went to this school, I got this job, I met these people, and now I am sitting here talking to you.
Right. I am basically the sum of my history.
Exactly.
It's like the ego is a guy walking backwards. It constantly needs to see where it's been to know that it even exists in the present.
That is a brilliant analogy. A guy walking backwards. Think about it. If you wake up tomorrow and you have absolutely no memory of yesterday or who you were even 5 minutes ago, you feel completely lost.
Total panic.
You feel insecure. The ego uses linear time. This happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, as a way to maintain its own identity.
Like a trail of breadcrumbs.
Yes. Without that trail, the ego panics.
It's existential dread, basically. If I can't remember the last 5 minutes, how do I even know I'm real?
Exactly. Let me quote Seth directly here, up to the 5% we're allowed. He says, the ego, however, is so constructed that it gains assurance from the memory of the immediate past.
So it's built in.
Right. It's a mechanism. It's a tool for operating in physical reality. But here is the catch.
There's always a catch.
Seth says this isn't how everyone operates. He contrasts the human ego with what he calls Other personality gestalts.
Okay, let's pause. Gestalt is a word Seth uses a whole lot in these books. We should probably define that for you if you haven't read the glossary.
Good call. A gestalt, in this psychological and spiritual context, is a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. So a personality gestalt isn't just a single person walking around. It's a massive consciousness composed of many different aspects, experiences, and focuses.
So Seth considers himself a gestalt.
He does. He's a multidimensional consciousness. And because he isn't focused in a physical brain, he doesn't need that linear timeline to know who he is.
Right.
These non-physical identities, they do not operate on a cause and effect sequence.
Okay, so if they don't use a timeline, how do they even think? How do they exist? If they aren't going from A to B to C, are they just, I don't know, chaotic?
Not chaotic at all. Associative.
Associative.
They operate via associative processes. It's not about continuity in terms of time. It's about connections, similarities, themes.
So they link things by meaning, not by when they happen.
Exactly. And Seth mentions that we actually get a tiny glimpse of them in our own minds sometimes.
Oh, right. The stream of consciousness thing.
Yes. When you let your mind wander, really wander, you don't think in a strict timeline.
No, I definitely don't.
You smell a specific perfume, let's say, and that immediately reminds you of your grandmother.
Right.
Which reminds you of a specific type of cookie she used to bake. Which reminds you that you are really hungry right now.
I am actually getting a little hungry.
You just jumped from an experience in 1995 to the present moment in 2026 in a split second.
Sure.
And you did it based purely on association, not time. Seth says that for these other entities, that's their primary mode of operation. They organize reality by emotional resonance and thematic connection.
But he also says even our stream of consciousness is kind of superficial compared to the real deal, right?
He does, because even in our wildest daydreams, we still have this lingering sense of continuity.
We still feel like I am the one having the daydream.
Exactly. We never fully let go of the ego structure. For these multidimensional beings, the freedom is just much more radical, which naturally leads us to the biggest concept in this section, the spacious present.
The spacious present. Man, I love that term. Sounds like a really nice living room, you know? Come into the spacious present. We have plenty of comfortable seating.
It does sound inviting.
But it's actually a really difficult concept to wrap your head around when you dig into it.
It is the core concept of the entire session, honestly. Imagine a reality where time isn't a line you have to walk down, but a vast landscape.
A landscape.
In a physical landscape, north isn't before south.
Right.
They just both exist at the same time. You can walk to the north or you can walk to the south. They are simultaneously available to you.
I see.
Seth defines the spacious present as a reality where time isn't marked by birth and death. He says, quote, "The spacious present is much more a vivid reality to those outside of your system. Your time seems marked individually by birth and death."
That's the kicker right there. For us, the landscape has huge brick walls.
Yes.
Wall A is birth, wall B is death. And we are just running between them, usually in an absolute panic because we think we're running out of space.
That's a great way to put it. But outside of our physical system, Seth says timing is entirely meaningless.
Meaningless.
If a personality can change its form at will, if you can be a biological being one moment, then a beam of energy, then a pure thought form, the whole idea of a lifespan becomes absurd.
Right, because you don't age.
You don't age, you just change focus.
It's incredibly liberating, but honestly also kind of terrifying for the ego.
Oh, the ego hates it.
Imagine not having a schedule. No, I need to have this project done by 5 p.m. No, I'm 30 years old, so I really should have achieved X, Y, and Z by now.
It removes the pressure, certainly. But it also removes the scaffolding that holds our current identity together. That is why the ego resists the concept of the spacious present so fiercely.
The ego loves the schedule.
It loves the schedule because the schedule proves it exists. Seth even mentions that our physical neurobiological structures, our nerves, our brains, are literally built to depend on this time system.
We're wired for it.
We are physically wired to perceive the illusion of linear time.
So we're basically walking around wearing time goggles that are glued to our faces.
And this session is essentially Seth trying to describe what the universe looks like when you take the goggles off.
Wow.
He says that for him, having known our time system in his past physical lives, he understands it. It doesn't hamper him now, but he gets why we are so obsessed with it.
He has sympathy for us.
He does. But for other entities who have never lived in a physical reality, our human obsession with past, present, and future is just completely baffling. They just don't get it.
It's like trying to explain the concept of
being late to a cat.
Exactly. The cat doesn't care. The cat is just There. It's always right now for the cat.
Actually, Seth touches on animals later in the session, and that's a brilliant parallel. But before we get there, we need to talk about what actually happens within this spacious present.
Right, because if you aren't moving from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday, what are you doing with your time?
You're exploring probabilities. Which brings us to segment 2.
Segment 2, probabilities and the multidimensional self. Now, this is where my brain usually starts to melt a little bit.
It's a complex.
I've always struggled with the whole many worlds theory or the multiverse theory
Why is that?
because it makes me feel incredibly insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if there's a version of me that made every possible choice out there, then my specific choices here don't actually matter, right, Trump?
I see what you mean.
If I choose the salad for lunch, a probable version of me chooses the burger. If I save a falling child, a probable version of me drops the child. It feels so nihilistic.
A lot of people feel that way. But Seth addresses this directly, and he flips the perspective completely around.
Thank goodness.
It's not about diluting the self or making your choices meaningless. It's about expanding the self. Let's look at the text. Seth discusses the idea of travel through probable actions.
Okay.
He says, quote, "The self allows itself to change while retaining knowledge that it is the self who changes."
Okay, let's unpack that sentence. The self allows itself to change.
Imagine you were standing at a literal crossroads. You can go left or you can go right. In our linear, ego-driven view, you pick left, and the reality where you picked right never happens. It's just gone.
Right, it's a dead end.
But in Seth's view, the self capital S is large enough to take both paths.
So there really is a version of me that went left and a version of me that went right.
Yes. But here is the crucial part that cures the nihilism. There is a prime identity.
A prime identity.
Think of it as the central hub of a wheel. That hub is aware of both of those versions of you. Seth calls this the multidimensional personality.
Okay.
This prime identity is aware of itself as the central hub, but it is simultaneously aware of all the personality offshoots it has sent out into these probable realities.
So I'm an offshoot. The me sitting here talking into this microphone right now, I'm just a spoke on the wheel.
In a sense, yes. You are a highly focused portion of a much larger identity.
That's humbling.
That larger identity is experiencing this deep dive recording through you right now, but it is also experiencing the version of you that decided to, say, quit podcasting and become a yak farmer in Mongolia.
Man, the yak farmer version of me is probably so cold right now.
Probably.
But why? Why split yourself into all these different pieces? Is it just for kicks? Just to see what happens?
Seth says it is definitely not haphazard. The prime identity has definite purposes, and those purposes center entirely on creativity and expansion.
Creativity and expansion.
He says, quote, "In all universes that we know, creativity and expansion are the rules."
So the universe isn't trying to reach some kind of static, steady state. It's actively trying to get bigger, more complex.
It is trying to know itself in every conceivable way. And Seth makes a really profound theological point here. He refers to all that is.
Which is his term for the universal consciousness, or God.
Exactly. He says, quote, "All that is ever straining to be more."
Straining to be more.
Even the source of all reality isn't finished. It's evolving.
Now that feels very different from the traditional religious view we're used to, where God is perfect, complete, entirely unchanging. Seth is basically saying God, or all that is actually figuring things out as it goes along.
Well, figuring out might be a bit too human of a term, but exploring its own infinite potential certainly fits. Seth implies that all that is not fully aware of all of its own purposes, for some of these are ever new.
Wow.
Every time you make a choice, and every time you explore probability, you are directly adding to the self-knowledge of all that is.
That is massive.
You are the frontier of God's own self-discovery.
See, that gives a tremendous amount of weight to our daily lives. It's not just, oh, I had a sandwich for lunch. It's, I contributed the unique experience of this specific sandwich to the cosmic database of all that is.
Precisely.
But wait, going back to the nihilism thing I felt earlier, if everything eventually happens in some probability, does my specific choice here actually matter?
It matters deeply because this specific focused portion of personality, are the one experiencing it and feeling it. The prime identity learns from the contrast between the choices.
The contrast, okay.
And this brings up a really comforting thought that was in the source outline, the idea that absolutely nothing is lost.
Yes, this is one of the most reassuring parts of the whole session. We tend to mourn the road not taken, don't we?
We do, constantly.
We sit around thinking, oh man, I wasted my life doing X when I really could have been doing Y.
And Seth says, You did do Y, and you did Z, and Q. And eventually, outside of linear time, you will be able to look back on all these lives, this specific life, and your probable lives, as one coherent whole.
No particle of individuality is ever lost. I think that's the quote, right?
Yes. He says, no particle of individuality is ever lost and no experience. You will eventually be able to see your own performance in probable universes.
I'll see the yak farmer.
You'll see the yak farmer, you'll see the podcaster, and your prime identity will integrate and learn from the contrast between them.
That is just wild. It makes you feel huge.
It should.
Like we walk around feeling so small and limited by our bodies and our clocks, but we're actually these massive, sprawling entities spanning across infinite realities.
We currently perceive only a very small portion of ourselves. That is the necessary limitation of the ego. But the inner self, the prime identity, knows the whole picture.
Speaking of knowing the whole picture, let's move right into segment 3. This gets a little meta for us.
It does.
We're calling this Big Brother Seth and the Nature of Knowledge.
Yes. This whole conversation came up because Jane Roberts and her husband Rob were wondering during a break if there was a larger Seth personality.
Right, like does Seth have a boss or a higher self?
Does Seth have a Seth?
Exactly.
And Seth confirms it. He says, I am already, in quotes, Big Brother, you see, meaning he is a larger entity to his own past personalities. But he admits that even he has a larger portion of his own identity above him.
It's just turtles all the way down, or up, I guess, depending on how you look at it.
But here's where that spacious present concept gets applied practically. Seth explains how his big brother views us right now.
Okay.
He says that for his higher self, this session 425 doesn't exist at a specific time. It isn't happening at 9:00 p.m. on a Wednesday in 1968. It just is.
It just is.
It's like a book sitting on a shelf. The big brother can pull it down and read it whenever he wishes.
That honestly breaks my brain a little bit. So the conversation we are having right now into these microphones, from a higher perspective, it's already recorded, edited, and uploaded. It's just sitting there on the cosmic shelf.
Yes. And simultaneously, it hasn't happened yet. It is all available right now, which leads to one of the most provocative statements in the entire session, in my opinion.
Lay it on me.
Seth says, quote, from what I have told you, it is obvious that there can be memory of the future as well as memory of the past.
Memory of the future. I mean, that sounds like a total contradiction in terms.
Not if you live in the spacious present. He goes on to say, quote, it is equally true to say that your deaths from this life are already accomplished, as it is to say that you have not yet been born in this life.
Whoa. Okay, let's just pause on that for a second. My death is already accomplished.
Depending on where you stand in the spacious present, yes. If you step outside the linear timeline, the event we label as death is just a point on the map.
Just a point.
It's there, you can look at it, just like you can look at the point on the map labeled birth.
But doesn't that mean everything is entirely predetermined?
Hmm.
If it's already happened, do I even have free will? If the book is already written and sitting on the shelf, I'm just an actor reciting lines?
Seth anticipates this exact fear. He says, quote, this does not mean that experience is a dream. It simply means that presently you perceive but a small portion of yourself.
Okay, but how does that give me free will?
Remember the probabilities we just talked about. Your death is accomplished in many different ways in many different probable realities. The you navigating this specific track right now still makes choices that determine which death you experience. And more importantly, you determine how you experience the journey getting there.
Okay, so the map exists, but I still get to completely choose my route.
And you are creating new routes as you walk. The map is alive.
Okay, that's a bit better. I really don't like the idea of being a robot on a track.
Seth is very clear throughout the material that we are active creators. If we were just robots, all that is wouldn't be learning anything new from us. The unpredictability of our choices is the whole point.
Makes sense. Now, you mentioned animals earlier when we were talking about time. Seth drops a really interesting little note about them in this section, too. How do they fit into this high-level physics of time?
He notes that while animals do follow a physical time sequence, they get hungry, they sleep, they age physically, psychologically, they are much freer than we are.
Freer how?
He says they experience past and future within the context of the present.
What does that actually mean in practice?
Think about it. An animal doesn't sit around worrying about a vet appointment next Tuesday.
True.
If a dog remembers a bone he buried in the yard last week, he is experiencing that memory right now as a present urge to go dig.
Right.
If he senses a thunderstorm coming later this afternoon, He experiences that future event right now as a present urge to seek shelter under the bed.
He's not looking at a weather app.
No, he isn't abstracting time. He is living the data in the immediate moment. Seth says this makes animals psychologically freer than us because they aren't burdened by the linear anxiety of what if.
Dogs are Zen masters. I absolutely knew it.
In a way, yes, they are much closer to the spacious present naturally than we are with our complex, worrying egos. We have intellectualized time so much that we've essentially cut ourselves off from that instinctual flow.
Okay, we need to move on to segment 4. We're going to get into what I call the action movie portion of the night.
The action movie portion.
Yes. Dream work, psychic first aid, and internal conflict.
This is fascinating because it shows how these highly abstract concepts, multidimensionality, time, actually play out in our practical, everyday psychology. We start with Rob's dream.
Right, so Rob Jane's husband, who transcribed all this, had this incredibly vivid dream where he was actually stabbed in the back. Ouch.
Literally stabbed in the back by a figure dressed in formal clothing. Now, most people would wake up from a dream like that in a cold sweat, thinking it's some kind of terrible premonition or bad omen.
Oh no, my coworker is going to betray me today.
Or they just think they watched too many spy movies before bed. But Seth gives a completely different, deeply psychological interpretation.
Yeah, he says the attacker wasn't an external enemy at all. It was a negatively developed self from Rob's own past, specifically from his early life.
A negative self, like a shadow version of him.
Exactly. A portion of his personality that was formed by negative inferences, fears, and compulsions when he was younger. This negative self had become an unwitting enemy of the confident person Rob had become. It was trying to regain control of his psyche.
And what about the outfit?
The formal clothing symbolized ritualized behavior, neuroses, stiff patterns of acting that restrict spontaneity and freedom.
And in the dream, Rob didn't just run away from this figure, did he?
Ooh, Rob retaliated. He actually slew the would-be assassin.
He killed his own neurosis. That is hardcore.
It really is. And Seth calls it a massive victory. He says, quote, when it was slain, it gained freedom, for the negative elements were released from their compulsions.
Wow.
So by killing this negative aspect in the dream state, Rob actually liberated that trapped energy. He integrated it back into himself.
It's amazing to think of dreams as an actual wrestling ring, where we actively work out our psychic baggage. It wasn't just a random firing of neurons, it was a decisive, productive battle for mental health.
Seth totally confirms this. He links Rob's recent emotional freedom and spontaneity in his waking life directly to this dream victory. He says the emotional warmth sparking now between Rob and Jane is a direct result of this mastery.
So if you wake up feeling weirdly refreshed after a really violent or intense dream, maybe you shouldn't worry. Maybe you just won a major psychic battle.
It is very possible. Dreams are valid work. Which brings us to Jane's work. While Rob is slaying internal demons, Jane is apparently working the night shift as an astral grief counselor.
Yeah, this story gave me chills when I read it. Jane had a dream where she was helping a woman named Miss Callahan.
Now, Miss Callahan was a neighbor of theirs who had recently passed away. In the dream experience, Miss Callahan didn't realize she was dead. She was just deeply confused.
Which, according to Seth, is a pretty common occurrence, right? You die, but you still feel like you, so you don't immediately believe it's over.
Correct. You don't suddenly hear harp music and see pearly gates unless you deeply expect to. You find yourself in a reality that responds instantly to your thoughts. If you don't expect to be dead, you might hallucinate your old apartment.
Makes sense.
So Jane's job of the dream was to gently explain the situation to her.
Excuse me, Miss Callahan. I have some bad news and some good news.
Basically. And Seth confirms this was a legitimate, real experience. He says, quote, he has helped Miss Callahan in the past in the same manner, but was not able to recall the experience.
He being Ruburt, which is Seth's name for Jane. We should probably clarify for the listeners that Seth always refers to Jane as Ruburt and uses male pronouns because he views her larger multidimensional identity as male-oriented, or at least he uses that specific name for the entity.
Right, good clarification. The key takeaway here is that we often help people we had emotional contact with after they pass. And we do this in our sleep.
We act as guides.
We reassure them, we help them transition. It implies that our relationships absolutely do not end at the grave.
We are all secret volunteer hospice workers on the astral plane. That's actually really beautiful.
It speaks to the deep, unbreakable connections between consciousnesses. Death doesn't sever those bonds. In fact, Seth mentions another instance of connection right after this telepathy.
Right, the friend in Boston. Patnarelli.
Seth mentions he would look in on her telepathically. But what's really interesting is the mechanism he describes for doing this. He says that because Jane believes Seth can help Pat, it provided added energy to the process.
He says, quote, Ruburt now believes that I can influence and help your Boxton friend. This gives us added energy with which to work.
This is such a crucial point about how psychic ability actually works.
Yeah.
Skepticism acts as a literal wall. Belief acts as a bridge.
It fuels the action.
Seth says, quote, "It is not that I could not help earlier. The conditions simply became more favorable." Jane's belief opened a channel.
That's a really tough pill to swallow for hardline skeptics. It implies that your cynicism is actually a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you want help from the universe, or your guides, or your higher self, you actually have to genuinely believe it's possible. Your doubt effectively hangs up the phone before the call even connects.
Expectation creates reality. If you expect isolation, you get isolation. If you expect connection or help, you facilitate it.
This brings us perfectly to our final segment, and frankly, the one I have been waiting for all evening.
Here we go.
Segment 5, the value of idleness, or as I like to call it, the spiritual necessity of vacation.
Yes. This is a delightful part of the session. Rob and Jane had just been on vacation, and they were apparently worrying a bit about not working, or perhaps just feeling that friction of easing back into the daily grind.
I'll feel that.
Seth actually stops them and validates the vacation completely.
He talks about the molecules, which sounded very sci-fi to me at first.
He says, quote, "Simply being out in the air allows for a larger give and take between the molecules of the physical system and the atmosphere."
That sounds like we are literal batteries that need to recharge. Like physically, we need to swap air with the planet.
We are part of the physical system. We get stagnant. But the deeper, much more profound point is about what happens to the mind during idleness. Seth delivers a classic paradox here. He says, quote, "The idleness, if prolonged, is not idleness."
I love that quote so much. I'm not idle, I'm just intensely processing.
But listen to the mechanic he describes. He says, quote, "Concentration upon physical data takes the conscious mind off for a trip."
Okay, explain that.
When you are focused on work typing, calculating, worrying about a deadline, your conscious mind is hyper-focused on the physical world. It's incredibly busy. It is gripping the steering wheel of your life so tightly its knuckles are white.
Right, it's totally locked in.
When you finally stop doing that, when you go on vacation, stare at the ocean, or just lie in a hammock in the backyard, the conscious mind finally drifts. It goes off for a trip.
It relaxes its grip.
And because the guard dog of the ego is away, the inner self finally has the freedom to initiate new developments and intuitional creations.
So the inner self is basically like, finally, the ego shut up for 5 minutes. Now I can actually download some software upgrades.
Precisely. Seth says these moments of idleness actually help you understand the true nature of time. Because you aren't watching the clock anymore, you're just existing.
You're in the present.
And in that pure existence, intuition bubbles up. Creativity flows naturally. The real work of the self, the expansion we talked about way back in segment 2, happens most efficiently when the ego isn't micromanaging the process.
So laziness isn't lazy, it is essential. If you don't take breaks, you are actively blocking your own growth.
You are blocking the intuitional creations that would make your work infinitely easier in the long run. It's the classic difference between chopping wood with a dull axe because you're too busy to sharpen it versus stopping, resting, sharpening the axe, and getting the whole job done in half the time.
I am feeling so incredibly validated right now. I am genuinely going to put staring at the wall on my Google Calendar for tomorrow morning.
Just call it integration of probable selves. It sounds way more professional if anyone asks.
Done. I'll block out an hour.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's try to summarize this before our poor linear brains completely short circuit.
Good idea. We started with the ego. It uses linear time as a crutch, a security blanket to know where it is and that it exists. But the underlying reality is the spacious present, a vast landscape where past, present, and future exist simultaneously.
Then we talked about the multidimensional self, the fact that we are just the tip of the iceberg. Our prime identity is out there exploring infinite probabilities. Every choice we make spawns a new reality, and absolutely nothing is ever lost.
We discussed Big Brother, the higher self, that has access to all these timelines at once on a shelf. We touched on the mind-bending idea that death is an accomplished fact from one higher perspective, but a journey we are still actively creating from our current perspective.
Then we looked at the practical side. Dreams as actual psychic battlegrounds where we defeat our past neuroses. Dreams where we help our deceased friends transition. And the undeniable power of belief to open channels for psychic help.
And finally, the absolute importance of doing nothing. The realization that stepping back from physical focus allows the inner self to expand and create new intuitions.
It is a lot to take in. But, listening to this summary, I feel a lot lighter.
Me too.
It's nice to know that I don't have to carry the weight of the entire world on my little ego shoulders. There is a big brother version of me handling the grand logistics.
And there are probable versions of you handling all the roads not taken. You don't have to mourn them. You are free to just be here in this specific probability, doing the absolute best you can with the data you have.
I really like that. Now, to our listeners, if your brain is buzzing right now and you want to go straight to the source, which you absolutely should, you need to check out the Seth Material for yourself.
Yes, please do. Again, we are analyzing session 425 from the early sessions, book 9. You can find these books and a treasure trove of information at the New Awareness Network website. Just go to sethcenter.com, the-early sessions.
Seriously, go there.
Yeah.
We are just two people talking in a virtual study. The books are the real deal. There is a depth and a nuance in Seth's original dictation that is just... It's electric. You really have to read it for yourself to feel it.
We are merely the tour guides pointing out the landmarks from the bus window. You have to get out and walk the terrain.
Well said. Before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought. We talked about the memory of the future and the idea that your life is, in a way, already a complete painting in the spacious present.
Yes.
So here is the provocative thought for the drive home or the shower or wherever you are right now.
Yeah.
If your death is already accomplished and your birth hasn't even happened yet, depending on where you stand, what are you worrying about right now that actually matters?
That is the ultimate question. If the destination is secure, why panic about the potholes on the road?
It's exactly. Take a breath, enjoy the view, be idle for a minute today.
Let the molecules interact.
Let the molecules interact. Thank you so much for joining us in the deep end today.
It has been an absolute pleasure.
See you in the spacious present.